iRacing have dropped their update, and with it, they've got some new cars, some UI polish, and some other things that are to be expected from an iRacing update. A lot of them iRacers will really appreciate. However, there is a bit of an issue with this update, and something that I feel is really quite anti-consumer, and that is specifically that what they've done is they've got a track in this update that was previously a track included in the subscription that's now a track that you have to buy, and the track is Laguna Seca. So previously you got Laguna Seca as part of your monthly subscription. Then I think it's about a year ago they made it that it was a track that people had to buy if they wanted access to it, and now they've made it so that everybody, apart from the people that previously bought it a year ago, everybody else has to buy the track to access it. Typically, in the past, when iRacing updated a track, they would make it so that the old version of the track goes to a legacy mode. So even though it wouldn't be raced in the official races, you could still access it, race it with your friends, and still use that content that you had as part of your subscription or had maybe bought previously, but now it's a legacy thing. Now though, with Laguna Seca, what they've done is the old thing is gone entirely. Unless you bought Laguna Seca last year, or you buy the new updated version as of today, or when it just came out, you have no access to Laguna Seca. It's gone. Laguna Seca has gone. It's disappeared. No longer exists. So basically, you're forced to buy Laguna Seca. Players that had it as part of their subscription no longer have it, effectively. The real interesting part of this, though, is just like from a sort of consumer perspective and from a joy of video game perspective, and just how it's kind of, in my view, really quite scummy. And iRacing has quite a few things like this. The way that if you sign up and you subscribe, it has an auto enroll thing that's put on, and you disable it, and if you then sign up again, it re-enables it without really without telling you or making that really clear. They might have changed that now, but that has happened to me in the past. They also have the whole licensing system where you progress through licenses, and then you have to buy cars specifically to get the higher licenses. But then if you're experienced with iRacing, you know that a lot of the really fun racing actually happens in the rookie and D-class stuff anyway. Then you have, with iRacing, people getting alt accounts where they have to buy content again, despite the fact that they already have technically licensed the content in their name. So they're having to buy another account and subscribe again. And then that obviously really doesn't work well with a pure ELO-based system. You know, it's just iRacing has all these practices that bizarrely iRacing gets a bit of a free pass on, purely because it is the only heavily active online competitive sim racer with a lot of players for you to then to be able to find the competition on, especially if you're a faster driver. If you're sort of in that probably like 3.5, 4K, 5K plus I rated or would be there, it's hard to find the competition, jumping competition on other services. So there are no other choices. So then iRacing just becomes a kind of, oh well, you know, it's iRacing, what are you going to do? Ironically, that's actually quite similar to real motorsport. You want to drive a Formula car? Well, you know, this series is the only one available. You bought this race car. Yeah, the specs changed for next season. So tough, you need to get another race car. What are you going to do? What else are you going to race in? You can't. So ironically, it's quite an accurate simulation of real motorsport. The arguable price gouging, I guess you could call it, or just shitty consumer behaviour that is a bit shitty for consumers. That's actually quite motorsportery. So good job, iRacing. But yeah, it's just it is weird how iRacing gets away with this stuff. Now, to play a bit of devil's advocate on the Laguna Seca situation, the fact is racetracks are a hell of a lot of work to develop, to actually 3D model, implement in a sim. So it's one racetrack is a lot of 3D modelling, and then separate to that, it's also a lot of finances to license tracks. Many sim racers would be really surprised. I can't really say figures in this video, but some tracks demand high amounts every year for their licensing. Some games only manage to get tracks because it's part of a license tie-in with some, like, you know, the F1 game, or there's some other game where it's all tied in through other license agreements. But when developers try to license tracks individually, the amounts are beyond absurd. Whatever figure you have in your head, the amount can be probably 20-30 times that. Some tracks really cheap to license, so it's a track by track thing. Each individual racetrack is often its own business, or groups of racetracks are their own businesses. Some racetracks are owned by the same business entity, some are individually owned. So in fairness to a developer, it can be really expensive to license a track. It's definitely a large cost to make a track, but then people are paying a monthly fee for iRacing. Maybe you could say, oh, that monthly fee goes for the server hosting costs. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I personally host an AC server with 35 slots for £15 a month. And the netcode and driving on that is better than iRacing. So unless iRacing have done something really weird with their servers, which is quite possible, I don't see where the hosting comes out of that £10 a month iRacing subscription. And then if you're going to say the subscription is what pays for the general development, well, then surely that can be including the tracks as well. The whole buying all the content in iRacing to the degree that people have to, and the content is no better than some free mods that you have for other titles. It's officially licensed and stuff, but you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how it sort of adds up in people's heads. iRacing is clearly not struggling. It's clearly a very profitable business. But, yeah, I don't know. iRacers will have an excuse for it, I'm sure. To me, all in all, it just seems really quite anti-consumer, and I do think it is the case that iRacing, for some reason, gets a big free pass on these things. It gets a free pass on its quite high prices. It gets a free pass on removing content that was included in the subscription. Gets a free pass on the netcode that doesn't allow really decent racing, and it gets a free pass on the tyre model, which is really drawn out and sloppy, which really reduces what you can do as a race driver. But I guess there's a lot of people on iRacing that are used to it. They don't play other sims, so there's less comparison for them to make. But then finally, and this gets multi-dimensional with how things end up always being worst for the consumer, you might remember that Laguna Seca was taken out of Race Room, presumably due to some kind of licensing agreement or licensing failure. And then, well, iRacing now has the new Laguna Seca, which is the only version of Laguna Seca. So it's quite possible. I don't know. I genuinely do not know what the actual situation here is. But it's quite possible that iRacing have bought or arranged an exclusive license, which means that other titles can't have that track. So great for iRacing. Oh, you want to play Laguna Seca, you need to use iRacing. But what if you don't play iRacing? What if you want to play a simulator where the tyres actually drive like tyres? What if you want to play a sim where you've got decent netcode? What if you just don't want to play iRacing, or you don't agree with monthly subscriptions, right? As a consumer, you want to access the content somewhere else. Now, I'm not saying it is an exclusive license, I don't know, but the fact that it was removed from Race Room at a similar time that iRacing removed the old one from their service to then replace it with the paid only to then upgrade that paid only suggests to me that there probably is some kind of exclusive arrangement on in the background. But this is all, it's just how money and these kind of licenses are often just bad for the consumer, bad for the end user. Like, hypothetically, let's say you manage to get people to pay more for your video game. You are profiting more off that, and then rather than using that to directly improve the video game's core features that absolutely need improving, you could instead spend a lot of money on marketing, or maybe send some of that money towards licensing agreements and using it as leverage so that you can make sure that other titles and other things can't access the same content that you've got. So you've made something exclusive by redirecting the initial money that you've made off the original product whilst still not improving the core product and just making sim racing as a whole actually worse to then make your thing look better when you haven't actually made anything better at all. You've just made sim racing worse. As I say, I don't know what the actual situation is. This is pure tinfoil hat territory from me. And as we know, where has there ever been an example where a corporation has taken advantage of a user base and not delivered the best product they possibly can through them trying to make as much money as possible? I can't think of anything myself. You know, it's sim racing, so who really cares ultimately? Probably sim racers, but certainly not iRacers. Well, that's it really. It's going to be really interesting to see what you guys think to this situation in the comments. The Laguna Seca speculation. As I say, a lot of what I've said in this video is speculative, pure tinfoil hat. I really do not know the underlying licensing and what's gone on. But I do think it is the exclusive license stuff and just generally the licensing historically has been bad for consumers. I mean, you saw what happened with Porsche back in the day with EA. Basically, only EA could have Porsches in their games, which was framed as being terrible, but a lot of people really benefit from that because who wants to drive a Porsche? I actually personally really like Porsches. But yeah, you know, when stuff gets exclusively licensed and just the cost of the licensing and then how that goes into the software, even when it's not exclusive, it's all this business side of thing that gets in the way of being able to just bloody enjoy video games and access content. But you know what? To all these problems, there is always one solution. And that solution is a rogue racing simulator, one that's currently used in industry as a training tool, that has all the tracks, all the cars, runs fantastically, has pretty decent netcode. That solution is Assetto Corsa. If only it had a unified, grounded online ranking system as a cohesive whole, not World Sim Series and Live for Speed, and maybe a bit more polish. It's not perfect. But there is always Assetto Corsa. At least that's something to fall back on. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know if you think iRacing are scoundrels or scallywags or just your standard American business. Till the next one, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for clicking the like button. Happy tea drinking. Take care and goodbye.